Shalom, everybody. It's great to be back here again. Tomorrow is Friday. Today is a very, very special day. It's Rosh Chodesh, and this day we are remembering my mother-in-law, Charlotte Kranz, who passed away a year ago to this day, and a very special woman of valor she was. And I want to have this lesson being taught in her name and her memory. We have to look back. This week's portion is called Toldot, which reflects generations, previous generations. We always have to look back what our parents have given us, what our forefathers have done for us, and in their merit we are here today, and we will follow in their ways. So let this lesson be, again, in memory of my mother-in-law, Charlotte. This week's portion, before we get to the opening of this week's portion, I would like to bring down a passage in the Talmud, in the tractate of Psachim. I think it's page 50b. Or 50a. You can check it out. And the Talmud tells a story. It talks about the son, Joseph, Rabbi Joseph, the son of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, of Levite. My mother-in-law came from a Levite family. And the Talmud opens up with an interesting story. Joseph wasn't feeling well. He was very, very ill, and he sort of had a afterlife experience. His soul left his body. He went up to the heavens. And then he came down again. It wasn't time for him to pass away. So when he came down, his father asked him right away, and he said, Joseph, what did you see in the upper world? And Joseph replied and said, I saw an upside-down world. Those in this world who were on the top, and they're looked up upon as being the upper echelons of society or whatever. And the upper world's there on the bottom. And the simple people, they're on top, which means everything is reversed. It's an upside-down world. So his father, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, said to his son, you saw a world of clarity. What a powerful message, he said to his son. In other words, this world, things are upside down. And what should be up is down, and what should be down is up. And this important opening message of this Talmud is really what this lesson is going to be all about. If we look in this week's portion, it opens up with a very, I would say, difficult, at first glance, story. What happens? The Torah seems to give an impression of Esau, the evil Esau, being misfortunate, being the victim. What does it say? He's coming back from the field. The poor guy is exhausted and tired. And Jacob is sitting there relaxing, making a nice meal of lentils. And Esau says, give me some of those lentils right now from that red stuff, he calls it. And Jacob answers her and says, no problem. I'll give you these lentils if you sell me your birthright. Now here, Jacob is doing a business deal with his brother. And the Torah stresses the fact that he's he's exhausted. Basically, it seems to be that he's going to die if he doesn't get fed. And Jacob says, whoa, before you get your meal, I want you to sell me a birthright. So Esau says, I'm going to die. What? I have no choice. I'll sell it. What good is this birthright going to be for me? I must eat. Whatever it is, he sells his birthright to Jacob. And that's the first story. What's going on over here? Jacob is trying to do a business deal over the birthright. You know, in the old times, in the Middle Ages, we know that anti-Semitism began when the church did not allow Christians to be money lenders. And the Jews became money lenders. And therefore, from that time period, the stereotype of Jews being these money-hungry businessmen, greedy, it all began in the Middle Ages, but really, maybe we could say it began here, because Jacob wanting the firstborn rights, right? It guarantees him a double portion. Someone could, unfortunately, read in between the lines the wrong thing over here. This is not the entire story. If we go on and we see later on, Isaac calls in Esau and he wants to bless him because he feels he's going to pass and leave the world. He ended up living longer, but he thought he was leaving the world then. And whatever it is, Rebecca hears the story. Rivka, as we say in Hebrew. And she hears Isaac telling Esau to go prepare him a delicious meal, that he loves it. And she says right away to Jacob, come here quickly. I'm going to go and get a he-goat, whatever it is, a little kid goat. I will prepare it the way your dad likes it. I'm going to dress you up with the clothes of Esau and put on the skins on your arms, so you will make sure that, of course, that he won't make a mistake, Isaac, in thinking that you're really Jacob, who you are. Whatever it was, this sounds like a real trick over here, and that's what it was, to try to sort of pull a leg over on Isaac. And that's what they did, and Jacob steals the blessing from Esau. What's going on over here? Why does the Torah give this impression on the outside that Jacob seems to be a con artist with his mother here and stealing and doing business deals, and poor Esau is the victim? This Esau becomes a victim. But in reality, of course, if we look just a little deeper, just go beyond the surface and try to reveal the truth, as I said, an upside-down world, we will see who Esau really is. The Talmud brings down, using, I spoke about in last week's portion, Chayei Sarah, the famous Gzera Shava, one of the exegesis methods of study, and that's doing what we call a comparison of two verses and unifying them. And basically, if we do this, we learn out that the Talmud teaches us that Esau committed 5 grave sins. That same day he comes back, he comes home to Jacob and is making the meal, and he's hungry and he's exhausted. Why is he exhausted for? He's exhausted because he worked very, very hard in preparing, very, very hard in transgressing the Torah and doing grave sins against humanity and against God. And the Talmud tells us what he did. And we see that very, very day, what did Esau really do? That very day, why was he so exhausted? Was because he committed 5 grave sins. He raped a woman that was engaged. He denied the existence of God. He denied resurrection. He murdered somebody, and he despised the birthright. These 5 sins, think about it. Well, most 4 of them, or 3 of them, the heavy ones, were committed before he got home. And once he came home, when Jacob was sitting there and trying to offer him this meal, then he continues to sin, because 2 of the sins are said directly out in the verses. And I'm not going to go through again, what I mentioned before, the exegesis, how the Talmud learns each one out, but it sort of compares words in different verses, showing that he murdered, showing that he raped, the same exact words. And you can look at my essay for, again, a lengthy explanation of this. But we see directly when he comes back to Jacob, and he says, I'm going to die. What do I need my birthright for? Meaning, this is the only world that exists according to Esau. There's no other world. And then the Torah comes out right out and says that he despised the birthright. So we see that this was obviously a grave sin on the part of Esau. What was Jacob doing? Jacob was preparing a meal. Why was he preparing a meal? It wasn't he was sitting around having a feast. But Abraham passed away that same day. And according to Jewish law, there's something called the Sudat Havrah. The first meal that's made for a person mourning, and Isaac was mourning, is called the Sudat Havrah, meaning to revive you after a very, very difficult experience. So Jacob was preparing adashim, lentils, and he was preparing eggs. Right, doesn't say here, but we have a custom of lentils and eggs, and because they're round, and the round structure reflects a circular form of a world. A world is a cycle, and also represents what's on top is on bottom, what's on bottom is on top. Everyone goes through a mourning period in their lives, and also lentils do not have a mouth, right? They're circular with this shape without an opening, and therefore, a person who's mourning, we know that he's without words. As it says regarding Aaron, Vayidom Aaron, Aaron didn't have anything to say. Sometimes silence is the reaction, of a person going through mourning. Because it's really hard to get the words out. And so we see here that on one hand, the Torah describes Esau of being, seeming to be this victim, but in reality, right away, looking behind the lines, he despises the birthright, he denies the resurrection, murders, rapes, everything you can think about of a person being so evil and terrible. And this, again, is hidden between the lines. But in reality, the Torah does not say it outright. It sort of hides it. The question is, why is it hidden for? This is the reality, but why is it hidden? If you think about it, it says in Psalms that emet me'eretz titzmach, that truth will come out of the ground. What do you mean truth will come out of the ground? Because truth is something that's hidden within the depths of the ground, just like a seed. You plant a seed, it's something that's hidden, but it contains such beauty that has to come and to grow forth. But you have, in order to make the seed grow and develop, you have to plow the field, make sure the earth is fertilized, water the seed, and finally it's going to give forth with truth and showing its inner essence. Esau, he represents the husk, the external husk of the world, and focusing on the external matters of the world. And that's really what interests him. It's interesting that if you look in the verse, Rebecca not only puts on the goat skins to try to imitate, try to dress up Jacob as Esau, but she puts on his garments. Now, not only his garments, she puts on the most beautiful garments, or the most precious garments that Esau has. And what are these garments? The Midrash teaches us that these very garments are the garments of the first man. Wow. How did Esau get the garments of the first man? Well, he murdered Nimrod. Nimrod got a hold of these garments. And I'm not going to go through again the details of Midrash, but of course it's trying to teach us a very deep lesson. There's something that's attractive. The first man, the first person created, the firstborn, he was given these special garments. God made his garments. Esau wanted these garments for himself. And the word used in Hebrew is called chamudot, to desire. He desired them. And in the Ten Commandments it says, you shall not covet. The same word, you shall not desire, you shall not covet your neighbor's property, etc., etc. So the word coveting in Hebrew is the same word used for for what Esau's clothes were. They were garments that were coveted. What was Esau coveting? He was coveting the external part of the garments. They represented the first man in the external way, which means they were very, very special. They had special powers. Our rabbis teach us they had pictures of animals that were drawn onto the garment itself that were able to help him, hunt. Animals would come to him because they'd have pictures of birds and deer, whatever it was. He was looking again to the external. This was the deep meaning of the Midrash, is that Esau was looking for the external side of the garment, and he wanted those garments. But our rabbis teach us these were the garments of the high priest. Why? Because in reality, it's not what the garment on the outside represents, but it's what's inside, who's behind the garment. And that's the precious soul and the precious seed that we spoke about before, the truth that's hidden beneath the garment. But Esau desired the external aspect of it. And something amazing is that in Hebrew, the word for garment is beged, bet, gimel, daled. Those are three letters that follow each other consecutively in the Hebrew alphabet. Bet, and then it's followed by a gimel, then followed by a daled. It's like what is a garment? You're putting on layers. You're layering yourself. You have a t-shirt over here. You have tzitziot. You have a shirt. Right, different layers of garments you're placing on yourself. So behind that is really you. And interesting, beged in Hebrew also means to rebel. Sometimes a garment can rebel against a person. You can look at a person and say, wait, you don't fit the garment, or can give a false impression about who you are. So again, it's sort of something that could create a lie and hide the truth. That's what a garment could do. Someone could dress up like a doctor, and he can think he's a doctor. He can dress up like a rabbi, and he can think he's a rabbi. But in reality, he's not. So, in order to know if this person's a true doctor, you have to know the inner makeup of that person, who he really is. And a garment could sometimes, obviously, give you the wrong impression. And therefore, Esau, he clung to the external, to the exterior, instead of looking for the essence, for the internal side. And that's why he wanted these garments of the first man, of what they were on the exterior. We should, the rabbis teach us that a person is allowed to be jealous and allowed to covet when? Spirituality, Torah, good deeds. You should be jealous of someone who does good in the world. Be like him, yes, that's a good thing to covet. But not to be jealous of the one who wants to be like a Hollywood movie star, or a famous athlete or actress, all these kind of things. People are always looking for the fame and the fortune. Those are external things we have to run away from. We have to look for what's behind that, the internal aspect. And this is what Esau did not do. He was running after the external stuff. But Jacob, of course, it says, Titein emet liYaakov, give truth to Jacob. Jacob was really represented truth. That's what the essence of Israel is all about. But unfortunately, again, he has been painted always as the villain, as we saw before, on the outside. painting anti-Semitism throughout the generations, is looking at the Jewish people and not looking what the essence is, what the deep meaning behind what they represent is all about, only trying to get hold of the external and getting the wrong impression. Not only that, Esau gives this wrong impression. That's what this husk is all about. And if we take this concept and we bring it to modern times today, we look at over the years. Think about going back in 1994 when the so-called peace talks were going on in the world, and here the Nobel Prize is given. And who was one of the winners of the Nobel Prize in 1994? Yasser Arafat, a person who was a murderer, a terrorist. He was given the Peace Prize. The only one who really gave anything for peace was the people of Israel, and not these not this Yasser Arafat or what he represents. Again, the world is coming along today, continuing this line of deceit and claiming a Palestinian state has to be formed on Israel's borders. Who defined the borders of Israel? God himself. The only map that he drew for a country's borders was a map of Israel. And that map is what the world today, with the husk of Esau, is trying to take away from the people of Israel and form again through deceit and saying this is not our country. So here we are, just yesterday. The European Union announced a new law. This was 2 days ago, right? Today's Friday. I think it was on Wednesday. They announced a new law that now they're looking at marking the products made in Judea and Samaria, in East Jerusalem, in the Golan Heights. So it's just reminding us of the darkest times of history, not too long ago, right? When there was a sign, putting on signs that you're Jewish, or all kinds of signs like that. Here you're marking the products of Judea and Samaria and the Golan Heights in Jerusalem. And when they're asking the ambassador to explain why he did such a thing, this is a technical, what kind of nonsense is that? A technical reason behind that. Again, is trying to show it's a one-sided decision of the European Union, trying to delegitimize the right of the people of Israel to the land of Israel, to the entire land that God gave us as a people. This is the way the husk of Esau works. It tries to hide through a beautiful suit, talking on the outside of like, I'm with you, and underneath has different intentions, unfortunately. And this, again, is an important lesson we have to be taught. And that's why the Torah opens up this week's portion with explaining, making Jacob appear as the villain, because this is what's happening. God's saying to us, listen, learn to look for the truth, learn to dig for the truth, because it's not a superficial thing, and the truth can easily be distorted, and the wrong impression can be made when you're living a life of externality. Whether the word, I can't even make up a word. When you're living a life of again physical materialism, external aspects of your life, looking for the exterior instead of looking for the interior. And that is really what leads to the Esavism, or the Esauism of the world, the Edom, the kingdom of Edom. And how Talmud talks about the Messiah time, and we're living in a time of Messiah. The Messiah we know will come at a generation that the truth will be lacking. And this is that generation. We see how much the truth is hidden, and the evil and the falsity of the world is trying to lift its head up so high. Look what's going on. Again, I spoke about it many times over, the Islamic extremism in the world. Is the world has to be fighting, with all its heart and soul to eliminate this extremism. Because that is the real danger. Israel is the only democracy, the only true friend that the democratic world has is Israel. And instead of strengthening Israel and realizing it could be such a powerful vessel for goodness in the world and ethics in this world, is trying to cause destruction to Israel. It could be whether it's on the surface, whether it's on the conscious or the unconscious mind. That's really what's happening. Because when they're declaring that they want to make a Palestinian state in Israel's lifeline, Israel's central borders of the country, the Bible Belt of the land is really, in other words, of trying to destroy Israel. They may not see it that way, but in reality that's the result, and that's the husk of Esau they have to eliminate. It's interesting, in the Torah, the word for man is Adam, the first man. And the Edomite kingdom is spelled the same exact way, just adding the word Vav in there, Edom. Now what does that mean? What is the implications of that? Well, the word in Hebrew that means and is the letter Vav. Just one letter in the Hebrew alphabet spells the word and. So what is, again, the external and the exterior? Running after materialism is all about, I want this and this and this and this and this and. If you take away that and, what are you left with? Adam, man. What God really wants from us is that this shell, this husk of Esau, will be removed from Edom, and then the word in Hebrew becomes Adam, man, again. And that's who a true man is, to realizing what his essence is, what his spiritual essence behind the person he is. That's the most important. And when a person reveals his spiritual essence, he will become close to God and realize that he's just a human being with a soul, and that his soul has to really search for God's light, and that Israel, the nation of Israel, is a vessel of God's light in this world to show what goodness is and to show what Torah is all about and to teach the world and to be a light to the nations. And it will bring a blessing upon all of humanity, including, again, the Arab world. So they're not outside the blessing that will come from Israel being in its land, building the temple in the land of Israel, will bless them as well in reality. But unfortunately now, the world is against Israel. From inside we have the terrible knifings and the constant terrorism that went on just over here. Just a day ago, there was again a word that terrorists want to enter the community of Itamar, and on Tapuach in the beginning of the week, people will run over here that study in the yeshiva nearby Itamar. We're being constantly challenged and tested. We have to be strong here. And we need people to show they're not going to boycott Israel and look at where the products are made, but they're going to stand with Itamar, and they're going to build Itamar, and they're going to show us the love and support, that they are really going to search for the truth and look beyond the garment, beyond the three-piece suit, and look what's inside, the person. That's what really counts. And this is what Ovadiah HaNavi, we'll look in the prophet Ovadiah, says, Valu Moshi'in, and the saviors will come, Bahal Zion, they would come to the Mount of Zion, Lishpot et Harisav, to judge the mountain of Edom. And then what will happen next, he says, and then God will be king. That will happen at the end of days. So let us pray. We are here now. We are at the end of days. Let us pray we will merit and sing very, very beautiful things very, very soon. Shabbat Shalom. B'sarot tavo. Have a beautiful Shabbat. And let's hear great tidings. Shalom, Shalom.